what am I? I'm the producing artistic director here at Outside In, the producer on this beautiful play, and I've been a fan of all of these women up here. Come on, look at this. Yes! Jessica Wong. Yay! Kirsten Vangsness. All of these ladies have made solo performances, so that's what I asked them here to talk about a little bit tonight. I got a few questions. Let's chat if anybody has any questions for each other, and then I'll turn it over and ask if anybody else has any questions. So just to kick it off, so why solo? What inspired you to write a solo show as opposed? Because I know many of you also write other things. Mm-hmm. So why a solo?
A solo show has been on my bucket list since I saw Charlene Woodard's in real life. Mm-hmm. I saw that done. I saw it done the first time she allowed another woman to perform her show. Ooh. It was in Dallas, and I just remembered it was like being a kid again. I was just like on the edge of my seat. I was weeping. And I just walked out of the theater being like, when I can do something like that, I'll know I'm a badass. And so it was kind of, right. It was kind of one of those things you put on your bucket list and you're like, someday. And then I got anonymously nominated for a fellowship that was specifically to write a one-person show.
Out of nowhere.
It just like I still don't. It was the Michelle Shea Fellowship through Free the Arts. And it was in 2021, and so I just get this email like, you've been nominated for this thing, and I had to do, and I was like, well, I was terrified to do even the submission, but I was like, this is a sign, like if I get this fellowship then it's time. And then I got the fellowship, so then I was like, I guess I got to figure this out.
You know I knew.
No, who nominated me?
It was Michelle Shea.
No, I just met Michelle Shea actually a few weeks ago. She didn't even know me. But yeah, so that's.
It was not. It was not.
It was not.
It was me.
So proud of you.
Yeah. So that was my journey to.
Yeah. So Liz, how about you?
Well, you don't have to audition. No one can tell you not to do it.
Yes.
Cheaper.
Yes.
It's a good replacement for therapy. Instead of paying people to listen to you talk about your problems, you get the audience and pay you to talk about your problems. And it feels sort of boundless, rules-wise.
Oh, right on.
I think.
I love it. What about you? Oh yeah, what do you do? Solos.
I was born in Pasadena, and my grandmother lived there and we would go to All Saints Church, and there would be like storytelling festivals, and I would listen to these storytellers and be like, I just loved that, just to be able to sit there and like see it all in your head kind of a thing. And I obsessively keep my journal around with me, and I have the same repeating questions about life, like how come, like the calls are coming from inside the house, but then they're happening out here, you know, and like how do I somehow make the calls that are coming from inside the house about my own stuff, like, you know, like it's my fault that Trump became president, and how do I fix the noise in here to fix that? So, and I have some repeating questions about myself, of the matriarchy. I have repeating questions about sexuality. I have repeating questions about the calls coming from inside the house, and it seemed reasonable. And the same thing of like, I wanted something that I could just like, I'm doing this show right here. I have a box and I can talk loud, and I'm going to stand here and I'm going to do it. And that felt like really empowering and like an ongoing conversation, and that like I like having those conversations. It's fun.
Yeah.
How about you?
Wow. I'm gonna pick up on a couple of the threads, because I think before I started creating the solo show, I was so used to being in the imagination of other people, and as an actor, you know, in New York and LA, you know, that's what we do. We are like, hey, can you please put me in your imagination? And very often, maybe I don't fit into certain imaginations, and so the process of doing a solo show, I think there were a few kernels that I wanted to explore, and I'm just gonna say it didn't stop, and I didn't stop talking until I was like, oh, this is a solo show. At one point, I was like, oh, maybe it's a two-person piece, piece, but. I think the combination of exploring the kernels, it didn't end until it turned into a one-woman piece. And it was a chance to explore me putting myself in my own imagination.
Beautiful. Right on. Something that I note about all of the solo work I've seen all of you do is there's a really beautiful balance between personal and universal. And I'm kind of curious if anybody can speak to because you're talking about very personal things, yet it resounds for audiences in such a way that it's like, how do you do that? Is that something you think about in terms of, because you're going through this personal place. Are you thinking about trying to make it universal? Or is it just like, I'm going to say the things and hopefully someone will respond?
I think I'm more the latter.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the things, and I hope. I'm like a big believer in make the art you need, because I think art, one of the best things for me about being an artist is the communal aspect of it and how it can make you feel less alone. And so in making the art that you need, you are accidentally finding community, because inevitably, I don't know that I've ever made anything where nobody responded, where nobody said, like, I didn't see myself or I didn't need something that was in this, even though it's something that's very personal. I feel like the personal is universal. And I think that we can get in our own little corners, in our own little chairs and feel like we're very alone. And somehow doing this thing that is super personal and saying it in front of all these people, and people saying, me too, and same, and also is like a big hug. It's like the best gift.
Brave.
I feel like because you're writing it yourself, you're either writing it like this, or you're writing it like, I do this salon at Theater of Note, if anybody wants to come next, it's on the 12th of June. But it's this thing called bits, and it's like people get up and they do 8 minutes or under a bit of something new that they're creating. And it's amazing how many people have things that they're like, I'm making this thing. We've been doing it for a year. And people have made whole shows that are going to be at like Hollywood Fringe and stuff. And I think that like it's the writing down, but it's also the spitting up in front of people. And when you do that, more than this, you're putting down your ego and you're like consorting. I'm going to be a little whatever, but we can all do it. It's not like none of us hold the keys to consorting with the universe, but like that's what you're doing. You're like putting down and you're going, I'm not important anymore. I'm needing to have this conversation and I'm being told what's important to talk about. And then you sort of serve that and try to get out of the way. But at the same time, it's all about you doing a one-person show, so it's weird. But I think that's for me, I feel like it tells you as you go along, this is the point, and you have to let go. Because I've done like one of the shows that I've done a bunch of times, Mess, like when I first did it, it was very me. It was very self-reflective. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I think like the Twyla Tharp of like the micro was the macro and all of that. But then it was like, oh no, it has to go that way. And when it went that way, even though I kind of didn't want it to, it was like, oh, that's where it's supposed to go. And so it kind of that's the fun part, I think, of doing a one-person show. One of the best things is like, it tells you, you're like consorting with something. It's creative, but you're like the whole thing, right? You're having to watch and be and let go and all the things in real time. That was a long answer. That's great.
I think.
Go ahead. I'm just thinking that so much of what I appreciate about this is watching someone fail in front of an audience and you're making eye contact with an audience, or at least some people are somewhere in those character things where they don't look at the audience all the time. But and I think that's so incredible in a world with so little nuance to have this form where you could spend like an hour with another human being and just listen and watch them go through an entire arc. I think it's and I guess in terms of, I don't know if I think about universal, because very few things are universal anymore, as we've realized in our polarized world. But except for cats. But even people hate cats. How stupid is that? Some people hate cats. So, anyway. But it's kind of incredible to just all sit in this room and watch someone share so vulnerably.
Yeah, I think I would just to add on, there's a acting game that I feel like every actor has maybe encountered in a beginning acting class or in middle school or in high school. And I still actually do it with my students in college, And every year I'm like, I'm not gonna do this. This is so cliche. It couldn't be more cliche. It's like the object exercise, where you bring in an object and you just share about it. But every time it happens, it's a link to this question, because these students who are not necessarily actors, you know, they bring in like their random keychain or a shoelace or a locket. It's something that's very specific to them and their experience. And then the frame for that exercise is, hey, as you listen, what's the story behind the story? Oh, this shoelace represents the time I was a part of a team. This locket represents my mother, you know, when she passed, you know. And so as we sit in a community, in a circle, and share the story behind the story and train ourselves to see it, that's when that life art lesson is exemplified. You know, the more specific you are is the most universal you could possibly be, because, you know, the breadth of human experience, I mean, it bounces between love, loss, regret, shame, like blame, like it's not that wide, though the manifestations of it are, of course, like infinite. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Thank you. Carolyn, can you speak a little bit to, because the piece that I saw you do has very little actual spoken text?
Oh, it has so much.
I mean, it does.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does. But also, like,
there's a clown.
Yeah.
She's referring to in my piece there is a regular human.
Yes.
Who speaks a lot to me, and then there is a clown entity that is nonverbal, and the show bounces between the clown is there to help us human better, and learn how to fail, and through the embracing of grief to realize the joy on the other side. And so, yeah, clowning and physicality is a giant part of what I love to do.
Did you write? I was curious about whether you wrote when you're, because I know, like, I've seen your script, so it's like those moments when it's like Damien's lines or the speaking back is actually in the script, but you don't say it. So, like, I was curious about if there's stuff like that. It was written out, but then it's just in you.
Yeah, well, the clown parts, the nonverbal clown parts, that actually, the lotsies, it's what clowns do, is like an act or a routine. The lotsie of the clown was the generating image for the show. The spoken stuff came after. I was in a workshop in Maine, if anyone has heard of Celebration Bar and Theater. It's like a devising space. It's awesome. And, you know, the guy was like, come back in 4 hours with a little piece of shit. And I also steal that from my students, too. It's like, oh my God, there's no pressure. I have to come back with a little piece of shit. Who cannot do, like, everybody shits. Everybody shits. So it was like, you know, so I just went into the room, and I think my dad had just passed. And so, not just, but like a year. And so, yeah, the first lotsie was, oh, grief sucks as a human. Like, maybe this clown who is like, undaunted by failure and loss and strives to just love, or at least my clown does. You know, what does this clown have to teach me about how to get through grief? And so the nonverbal, two of the lotsies that actually ended up in the final show came from just this like little tiny assignment of find a little piece of shit. And and then I was like, oh, this is really helpful and therapeutic. Who said about the therapy? I was like, this is lovely. So yeah, it kind of, the clown emerged not sometimes through my mind, but mostly getting myself in a room and putting on Cirque du Soleil music. I really wish I was hired by Cirque du Soleil, and just playing. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, I have two more questions, but then I have to see if anybody else has to ask anything. I was doing these personal pieces about that come from someplace inside of you. Is there a concern, or has there been a concern about the people that you're talking about the people who are part of your story, who are alive, who might see it? I once did a solo writing class with Paula Killen, and she would just be like, they love to see themselves on stage. No matter what you're saying about them, they will love to see themselves on stage. And I was always like, really? Oh. But I don't know, how do you talk, or feel about including other people? You're like, no.
No, I do.
I know you do.
Yeah. I used to get notes from my mother. Except for this last one where she looks like a good person, but even that, she's like, you know, I'm glad I had my redemption moment at the end. But, yeah. No, I don't know.
Be ready to take notes.
I was always scared about that, and then I have found that this is weird, this is just my experience, the more and I come from like a very like Italian immigrant family of like, you keep it in the house, like you don't share any of your stuff. And I found, weirdly, that the more specific I am about a thing, the more they do not know it's about them. And I tell so specific that my mother will think, oh, it's magical realism. Like so specific. And I think it's that Gabe Mentor, Gabor guy. There's a therapist, right? And he says that every sibling has a different childhood. Like you can't have the same, you know, even if you were twins, you just can't. And I think it's like I've had to give up that, like, oh, it's not gonna match what anybody says, but I'm going into it like that. And also, it's not a fucking what is that? Deposition? It's just you get to tell your thing. You know what I mean? That's not. And I feel like all of us. I just want to speak for me. I have to constantly release myself of that. Like, it's not my job. I'm not a historian. That's not what I'm doing. I'm doing something else. But you have to constantly take that pressure off.
Yeah, no, I get annoyed because so much of the work I do is about like trying to not represent different communities, but you know, I'm definitely not in the business of. I hate when people hear that I'm working on something and they're like, oh, and then they think I'm their marketing department. So right now, Jessica's directing my new show. I was had a talking to by St. Mary's Food Bank, the oldest food bank. I'm doing a show about food banks, and they don't like my approach at all. and they made me cry when I went to go over and visit them. So what I've said to Jessica is like, if we could just figure out how to talk about it, just like a little penknife in the neck twist. Like this whole show does not even become a hit piece about them, but just a little.
I worked in a group home. You do need to do a little I agree with you.
It has been something I've thought about, but my show, I mean, you know, this is the first run of my show, so TBD on how they feel, how the people the show feel.
Mom and dad are coming.
Oh yeah, my parents have seen it though. My parents have seen a version, and they, oh my god, they think the end part, the family part, is hysterical. But I don't think that they know who anybody, like, I want to have them guess who they think everyone is, because they are in it. I don't think they think they're in it. But they do find that part really fun. We'll see how the rest of everybody else feels.
Not so much to add. I mean, I think for both Anne in particular, it was such a, I think they would have been happy with what they saw if they had seen it. You know what I mean? It wasn't too concerned about releasing demons. I think in my next piece, there'll be some things that, you know, they would have said like, you're not talk about that. But this first one, I don't think they would have.
I wanted to ask, particularly because we've just started to open this play this weekend. It's going to go to Edinburgh, so it is going to move. And I know all three of you have experience of moving, starting a piece in one place and moving it someplace else. So I was going to say, in terms of this last question, do you have any tips, advice, things to share for both, like in terms of how you move a show, but also for a performer who's going to have to do something a bunch of times and be in their story quite a bit? They're like, no.
I would say,
like, good luck.
Take care of your nervous system. That's what I would say. Like, go and try to go enjoy things, but also like keep your energy for yourself, because Edinburgh specifically felt like there's 9,000 radio stations and you're like tuning right to all these different radio, which is great. But also you are in charge of that radio station. Like when I went, we were doing another show, so like on the days off, everyone would go frolic, and then I can't frolic. I just have to like keep my, you know, and it does kind of feel dumb, but you know, you get right. But also it's so neat. That's what's so fun about doing any play, right? But I think one person shows in particular, they tell you what the show is, and it's gonna be a whole other show. You know, just like when you do a run of a show, right? Here and then here. But since you wrote it, you start going like, I don't need that. You're in the middle of the show and my brain will be like, that's stupid. Like, and like, why am I doing that and that? Take that away. And then your brain goes, this would be cool, do this right now. And you can because you wrote, but also you're in Edinburgh, you gotta get the fuck out of the theater. So there's that too. But I think that's fun, is like letting yourself, take yourself off the hook of like go and like let it tell you what it's gonna be.
What time is your show at?
4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Cool. Mine was like at 10 or 11 a.m., which is which gave me the whole day. Like I just wouldn't hang out super late, but which sort of it sort of freed stuff up, and then I switched, I think, on the 3rd week to 7 p.m. shows, but they laugh differently there. They're not big laughers, and I thought I was doing high drama at times. And then I had this classroom of American kids who came to like study abroad, and then I was like funny again. And then it was back to these like sort of mixed British audiences. I kind of realized I don't really care for the British. That's what I got. Xenophobia.
Also, you just came off of a run of doing like your show 8 days a week.
Yes.
How did you take care of yourself in there?
God, I don't know. Oh, electrolyte powder. This little white powder. It looks like cocaine. And then ginseng. And I would just be in bed. I would just be in bed. I think what was hard in Edinburgh, we stayed in a dorm situation, and then at like in the middle of the night, there'd be people like singing show tunes at midnight, and I'd be like, I'm trying to sleep. Yeah, Stacey, you're nicer than a dorm. I'm very jaded from my Edinburgh experience. If you're jaded, come talk to me, but maybe they had better ones.
How was it moving your show?
As soon as you asked that question, I just had an overwhelming, again, gratitude for Jessica Kuzansky, who's here from Boston. Oh man, gratitude for the producer. Like that, I just, and the people outside of yourself who can really truthfully and with love, like reflect back what can be cut, what, you know, my mind is constantly doing that in the middle of the show, like, and the stage manager's like, can you say the cue line? And I was like, but now it doesn't work. And, but just, you know, people outside who are in the trusted circle of like, I see you and I hold this vision. I trust, I'm so grateful, and I just, the trust and the gratitude for the people who bring you there is the biggest tip of just like show. I don't think I gave enough chocolates. I mean, I didn't. I don't know. I'm so sorry. But and also just like, I know for we did have an 8 show a week at the Wallace, and I have never been on such a strict eating what I put into my body, which I kind of loved. The necessity to be so strict with it for me helped. And like mushrooms from Sprouts, not the psilocybin, like the smoky high mushrooms, but like that mushroom powder from Sprouts. Is, oh my God, I discovered that, and like, energy maca powder. Anyway, what I put into my body like made all the difference. I was good. Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you. Right. We've got to record it. We're good.
Yeah.
I want to move out here. Does anyone have anything that they would like to ask any of these queens? These solo making queens here. Yes.
Hi Kacie. I just wanted to say I saw the ad for this show on Instagram. Randomly was like, oh, this is like in my area, I want to see it, and I saw you in the blue sky. I didn't realize until you like came out, and I was like, oh, I saw it too. How do I know?
I don't know who you were in it, but you were great.
Claudia.
Okay.
But, thank you for the support. That's awesome.
Glad to be here. Excellent show. I'm really love seeing your work.
Thank you.
And kind of for the whole panel, I know you guys have been talking a lot about the kind of two sides of the same coin, like micro experiences and it reflecting into your macro audience or larger patterns in our world. And I think I resonated with so much of the show, seeing different experiences you're describing. I think my question is, or like pondering maybe like, as you're writing work that is based around your own experiences, how do you grapple with like other people creating a sense of you based on your work, and also not necessarily dictating your life line by line into a piece, letting the work become its own thing that doesn't have to exactly match.
That's a great question. And I think in line with what Carolyn was just saying, like, yes, flowers for all the producers, Chelsea girls back there, but also flowers for me, for my director, Jaquita Talkback. Choosing Jaquita as my part, because she came on with me as I was writing. I asked her to help me develop it and direct it at the same time, and that was the selection of that. And I talk about this a lot because it's true. The show would not be what it is without her. But choosing who I wanted to direct, I was like, it has to be somebody who knows me really well, who I can say all the scariest things that I've never said outside of my body in front of, and who will know me well enough to say, hey, you said this thing, I think you mean this, but it sounds like this. So let's talk about the words, you know, and we trust that she knows me well enough to decipher my meaning, because I could not personally, I started with writing all the scariest things I would never say outside of my mouth in front of an audience, you know, like that was my approach. And so I needed to be in a space where I felt super seen and understood, that the person who I was giving this to would not be like, ugh, you know, like, and misunderstand me, but help me then craft, and then would be very honest with me about being like, hey, this isn't there yet, or hey, we need to find a way to do this. And just having that constant, like, I'm throwing spaghetti at the wall and she's like, nope, not that one, try another noodle, like, keep trying. And we did that over and over and over again, and I kind of through her eyes was able to get rid of the fear of being misunderstood, of knowing, because sometimes she would be like, it sounds like you mean this, and I'd be like, I do. And she'd be like, okay, heard, you know? So then I knew that I knew how I was being perceived. I knew which pieces of my life were going to work for the narrative of this story and which ones weren't, because she would always tell me. And so I guess that long answer, if I was to create a thesis statement, would be collaboration. Choosing the right collaborator to develop with was what changed the game for me in that regard.
No, you're like, yes, everyone's like, yes. Totally. Yes, in front.
I have a million questions, but I'm just gonna ask two. First, whatever happened with Damien? And then sounds amazing. And second, how do you? Because I was talking to a friend about this today. Like, how do you take off the writer hat and put on the actor hat? Like, do you struggle with that? Do you? Yeah.
You're like.
Damien's out there. He's gonna be one of those people where I'm like, maybe he'll watch it, maybe he'll tell me what he thinks. And then the second question was, how do you take off the writer hat? You don't take off the writer hat. You are forced by, again, your director and your producers to be like, stop. You must stop now. And then they're like, let's just focus on the show as we're making it. Like, let's focus on this show that we're making. There's a lot of that from my team, which I appreciate them for. If there is, obviously, but you are the writer though, right? So like, ultimately, if there's really something where I'm like, but this is just bad. This is bad writing, and I wrote it, and I need to change it, or it's gonna kill me. It's gonna kill me. I'm never gonna say it. You know. Then she's like, okay, stop twitching, and just please change it. Ariel, we're gonna change it. You know, like, and but yeah, that's, you don't. It's hard. It's really hard. But I also would say, like, if you know you're putting in hands that you trust, and that person is continuously being like, hey, it's good, stop, then you have to eventually be like, okay, not my baby anymore, your baby, you know? Or try to.
Yeah. No, and then when I'm memorizing lines and someone's helping drill it, I'm like, why did I say it like that? That's dumb. Why did I write that? Yeah.
That's just bad writer.
I'm lucky that I'm very forgetful. Like, when I write, I will write something, and then the next day I'll be like, this is horrible. Oh, that's not bad. Who wrote this? And sometimes I'm like, and I'm in the process of, because I'm a longtime member of Theater of Note, and we do things to try to generate, you know, things for the next play or whatever. And I'm rewriting Mess, because I haven't done it since 2019, and it's such like a living document. And I went back and I was like, oh, it's so different. Like, it's all so different now. And I was I was just started getting into it, and it was like, the actor in me was like, no ma'am. Like the actor in me was like, no, this is wrong. And then I'm fixing it now as an actor, having a dialogue with a writer that's 4 years younger than me. It's really, but it works. It works because I feel like as an actor and as a writer, because I've been consistently, I've grown in a different way, and I have different things to say. So it's weird to like interface with it. So yeah, it's weird.
I just I did have to. I think there were some notes that were coming in, but I can't. I would be so nervous to memorize all those lines that I had to have a delineation. Like the script is locked after a certain point. I will say with the caveat, the script I had in my head was different than the script that the stage manager had. You know what I mean? Because like tiny words wise, like I knew the script was locked in my head, and at some point, if this will ever be, I need to just dictate what I know it is versus like what are those words.
That's so true.
But, yeah. So, but other than that, like yeah, certainly the script had to be locked for me to have the confidence and the confidence to be able to go 90 minutes straight speaking. I couldn't have a wiggle. I couldn't have like certain notes come in. I told the team, I was like, thanks, I love you all so much. Now I'm an actor, you know, and then the writer took a backseat.
Has anybody ever gone off script in the middle of, like, gotten an inspiration and gone off script and then worked your way back?
Definitely not.
One of the shows that this show Mess, it's sort of designed to fall apart. Like it doesn't work unless at a certain point in the show the entire thing breaks. And luckily the universe has been very kind to me. One time there was a very large earthquake in Los Angeles during a summer, and I was doing a show. And it didn't happen at the time I wanted, but I was so nervous that by the end it broke just fine. And then sometimes, because I was doing it in the black box, like the lights or the sound, like sometimes things will happen. And so there's a part in something that I've written where I have to like, there's nothing there, but it's intended to be nothing there. And it's horrible, and I hate it. And I don't know if anybody else experiences, but this is the thing I hate about doing a one-person show, is you're backstage when they say cue, time to come on, and then your whole body goes, this is the dumbest idea that anyone's ever had. Why did I think, I'm in the middle of rewriting it now, at night I go to bed and go, you idiot, like no one wants this, what's wrong with you? And you have to keep foraging ahead because there's a reason why you chose to do it, and you have the right to do it just because you want to do it, you know what I mean? And the work that all of those three have done is extraordinary, like that I've seen. And so like I to the point that when I walked up I was like, oh, I'm remembering who sat in the so they should be doing that. So if you're having that experience of like, what's wrong with me, why did I choose to do this, like, but that is the worst of, so it does break down right before you go on stage.
Oh yeah. No, I remember this last show, Kristina Wong, Sweat Shop Overlord, 2022 Pulitzer Prize finalist in drama. Thank you very much. I'm backstage because like, usually the shows I would do, there's no one backstage because there's only one crew person. It's the person that has to go tell me I'm gonna get ready. But anyway, there's people back there, and I was like, this is so stupid. What am I doing? I'm like clutching the walls, and yeah, I think I'm glad to know I'm not the only one who's like, in the middle of the night going, what's wrong with me?
What am I doing?
Why isn't I just find a therapist?
And I saw a hand back there, and then one in front.
Yeah, for everybody, how many drafts before you realized it was ready for an audience?
And it shows up and you go, uh-oh.
How did you come up with the title of your one-woman show?
How many drafts? Jack, do you know?
How many drafts?
It's like 4. It's version 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was more. You're like, huh? I don't think there's a number.
24.
24.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot, but it was also I'm on 24, I think. Yeah, 24. Yeah, but after this last run, now it feels like if this show goes on, this would be the last little amazing director Andy Chapman and dramaturg Emily Pascal Beck I would never do another show without those brains. But the last little it was so, I think I just get a nerdy about story because there was one and Jessica saw this too, but I couldn't fix it for the Boston Court production. But there was one thing that just needed to be in a different location, and it's true. And they all said it, but I was like, I gotta be an actor now. But we did it for the Wallace, and it was so, kind of small, but I don't know if anyone weight lifts, but like it just the entire like the circuit of it just flowed, and it felt so good. So anyway, that the script now feels locked. I don't think there'll be that any like tweaks necessarily after this one, but it was a long. Also, because I'm taking up time, but in 20, I was gonna do a different version of this show by myself and the Fringe with a different everything until the pandemic, and the pandemic shut that down. And then I just happened to speak to Jess, who was like, "There's something here. This is not the right frame for it, though." So I threw away like the frame, and then we found the frame that it now is. So that's why there was probably so many versions, because it really took a shift in 2020. But I forgot what I was going with that. Anyway, there was a lot of willingness to let go, and a lot of shifting to arrive at what the story wanted to be, and a lot of need of surrendering, you know, the darlings, as we like to say.
How did you all come up with the title of your show?
It's so funny that you talk about like your director saying this is not the frame, because that's what Jupiter was also saying to me. And window selling was not a part of the show until the last draft.
Wow.
Like, it wasn't a part of it at all. And people ask me where that came from, and I'm like, I don't know, God. Because it was just like one morning I was like, and yeah, it was just, I think I named that draft I Sell Windows, because that's the container that I was putting into the show, and thinking that it would be like a working title. And then she was like, "No, I like it," and I was like, "Great."
This thing is a window.
Yes.
Right.
It just showed up for you.
Titles.
Well, I go, what's my name? Okay, Kristina Wong. So that's half the title. Come up with some words.
I set out to write a play about a mess, so I just called it Mess. And it just worked. It worked. And yeah.
I think both and for me is so, it couldn't be more what I am about as a human and the show is about symbolically. So I was like, oh, I guess this is the both and. So it was, very direct, pulled from the theme of the show.
One more here.
Yeah. What's a hurdle that you all faced bringing the show together, and how did you overcome it?
Challenges.
Just one? So this is the first version of, I've done a workshop of this show, and I've done a one night only version of this show so it's only been on one other set before, but also it never had shadow puppets, the puppetry, which also, let me shout out my puppeteers. Brittany designed all of these puppets that you saw herself, and Perry helped her run the whole thing. They're absolutely incredible. But they got brought on specifically for this run of the show. And so it was a fully welcome challenge, but a new challenge for, I think, all of us. Also learning this space, learning the light grid and how that works, but also being like, you're going to be kind of backlit. And we have to figure out what that dance is and where the safe spots are on stage. In an intimate space where both pieces of art can be seen well. So I think that was one of the biggest physical hurdles in putting together this show, is just making sure that both aspects of the show could be seen and heard and understood all the time.
Remember that seaweed blob that was coming for the United States last summer, and it was like it was growing as it moved, and I feel like most of the topics I usually go pick by topic, and I go, this will be a little show about, I don't know, the economy. That's easy. And then, and then I can get stuck on, let me just read another article. Let me just research and develop some more and not get to the actual show. So what helps is knowing that the show has to premiere at some point, and we gotta quickly make some decisions. But yeah, I think that for me, it just, everything can get too big too fast and I learned too much and this much might make it in.
I think mine is just, it's just you. You know, I just decide, like, I'm going to do this thing. And I tend to, I think part of the solo show of it for me is like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to hire somebody to run tech. I'm very much like that. Like, I think for me it's hard to be okay with literally asking people to come and like, I'm going to just be me here for a second. And you're going to have to sit there. And I think that that's my own self-deprecating, I gotta work on it, but that would be like probably my biggest thing is like I can go through this like, why are you all out there? I think that is my biggest
That's so real though.
Yeah. It's overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, there were challenge, that's like, yeah, like which one? But in the moment, I would say fear was a big one. I think my wife was like, I have never seen you so scared. And I'm like, yeah, also because the type of show that I was creating, I was like, I'm gonna put black people and clown and the Middle Passage and slavery in one, and like it's gonna be about death. It's like, is it gonna work? And Jessica was like, it will if you have a big enough frame. And I was like, okay. But it felt like such a, but it was so me. It was so again, that like the internal hurdle of the fear of like, is this gonna, for 90 minutes? I was so scared. So I don't know how I got through that. I was so scared.
Thank you for being brave right now, sharing that. I feel like we've talked quite a bit, and I just want to thank you all for coming and sharing with us.
Thanks for doing that.
Bits at Theater of Note. Totally. Let's see. Kristina Wong's going to have a new show come March because we have a date.
Where?
The end of March.
Woo!
It'll start in Arizona.
Yeah.
And then we'll see where it goes from there.
And maybe go to the Kennedy Center. They just called me.
Totally. What are you working on?
My show is going to the Black Theater Festival in North Carolina.
Yes!
And I'm headed to Edinburgh.
A really fun way to do that is to go online on both Balti site and on Outside Insight. You can get to the merch, and the merch is super cute. There are bucket hats with knot on it. There are what are the Chris Fuckboy panties?
Yeah.
There are water bottles. There are all bunches of stuff. That's a really great and fun way to help support us going to grow. But yeah, and thank you all for coming out to Outside In. Really.